over how to cut your own hair step by step in super detail using clippers. Now, why should you listen to me? Why should you watch this video? Well, back when I was living in New York City, I used to be a hairstylist to the stars. And I literally did Anderson Cooper's hair just a few hours before this Vanity Fair cover photo shoot. I literally cut Anderson's hair for this photo shoot. So, I've also been an educator, Japan, London, Washington, D.C., New York City, California, Salt Lake City. I've done a lot of educating on how to cut hair. So, on that note, I hope you guys watch this video in super detail, the step-by-steps on how to cut your very own hair using clippers. So on that note, let's get started. Alright, so the very first thing you're going to want to do is wash your hair. And the reason why is if you've got bedhead like I do, because I just got out of bed, or maybe you've been wearing a hat all day, basically your hair is not in its natural state right now. Meaning that it's smashed down doing what it would not normally do if your hair was perfectly clean and shampooed. Normally your hair would probably stick out, but due to sleeping on a pillow or wearing a hat, it's all smashed right now, which makes cutting your hair a little trickier. Because if you cut your hair while you've got bedhead, let's say, or hat hair and your hair's all smashed, when you go to wash your hair after the haircut, the hair will now be clean and stick out further and longer than what you had wanted because you thought it was shorter because it was smashed against your head. So for any of you who've already tried cutting your own hair, you've probably already experienced this where you cut your hair, jump in the shower, get out of the shower, and now you've got these long pieces sticking out just simply because they were smashed against your head. You did not see them, so they got left behind, and now you've got longer pieces throughout your hair. So on that note, let's go wash our hair. Alright, now that my hair is all wet, here's a tip that I'm going to share with you that I would not normally do in the hair salon, but if you're not a hairstylist, you wouldn't know this. So, a tip to make cutting your own hair easier for short hair like this is to actually blow dry your hair in the style of how you'd normally wear it. So as we start to cut the hair, we can start to see how the haircut shapes and forms already styled the way you're going to wear it. Now the reason you're going to do this is you probably don't know this, especially if you're not a hairstylist. If you're a hairstylist, you probably already do know this. But wet hair shrinks from wet to dry. I should say hair shrinks from wet to dry. Meaning, if you cut your hair wet, it's going to shrink a little bit. Ask any girl who's ever cut their bangs wet. When it dried, their bangs shrunk up, right? And then, of course, they were very unhappy. The same thing happens to guys or anybody who has short hair. If we cut our hair wet at a certain length, thinking that we're doing the length that we want, when it dries, it's actually going to be a little bit shorter. So, to avoid making this mistake, having you accidentally cut your hair too short, you're going to blow dry your hair first. Again, I'd probably not do this in the salon just because I know better, but for you who may not know how to cut hair, you're doing this for the very first time, my recommendation is to blow dry your hair in the way that you would normally style your hair. So, on that note, let's blow dry our hair. Okay, so this is normally how I would style my hair, except it's really long. So let's dive into the haircut. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do now in the haircut is cut in our shortest length. So a good place to use as a guide when establishing your shortest length on where that shortest length will end and fade into the next length a little longer is basically where your hairline makes a natural transition. So your hairline comes down to a point and then goes in towards your ear. And right here, where it goes in towards your ear to the point and goes up, that's a natural transition in your hairline, which makes for a great guide to do a transition in your fade. So basically using this point where the hair comes to a point and then goes back in, that point is going to be my guide on where I'm going to cut everything underneath that, my shortest length. Now, when we get to the back of the head, the occipital bone, this bone that sticks out of every human head, is basically another great transition point, a natural transition point where you can take the hair at its shortest point, the shortest hair that we're going to cut, and basically cut it up to your occipital bone and then fade that out. So you'll basically have your shortest hair from the point in the hairline right here all the way back to the occipital bone, and then of course all the way around to the point on this side. So What we're going to do is take the clippers, and depending on how short you want your shortest length is up to you. You can do it with no guard whatsoever, which is what we're going to do right here, or you can do it with a guard. You can put on any guard size that you want, and basically your shortest point, your shortest length I should say, will be cut in from this point to the occipital bone, from the occipital bone back to this point right here. So we're going to use that as our guide. So on that note, let's get started. All right, so for me, I've got the clippers right here, and as you can see, I've got them pushed all the way forward because I want to take the hair as short as these clippers will allow it to go. So from here, I'm just going to start going right up to that point in the hairline that we discussed, and everything below it is going to be cut at that length that the clipper is on right there. Now, once you get here, a good idea is to kind of flick out, flick out, flick out, and it just softens the line. Now we're going to transition this a little bit differently as well, using guards, of course, or we'll be pulling this lever back, but you can just kind of start to already fade that line out by just doing a little flicking when you get to the point right there, and just kind of flick out. So it just softens the line that you're making. Now if you don't feel comfortable flicking, then just stop right here, and we'll then basically adjust the length with the guards and take it from there. So now we're going to go towards the back and use the occipital bone as our guide. All right, so I'm using a mirror so I can see the back, and I'm basically taking the clippers flat against my head and just following the line, the guideline that I had already made, and I'm slightly flicking out. It's a very subtle flick. It's nothing crazy. It's just to help eliminate a really hard line being put in there, but not a big deal. We can always take that line out later if you're not comfortable with the flick. Okay, so now I'm here at the occipital bone, and the occipital bone already kind of helps the blade, the clipper, flick out anyway. So just working up to the occipital bone. And same thing, as I come up to the bone, it helps me flick the clipper away already. Okay. And I'm just working my way around. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to meet it on the other side. Okay, so now, same thing on this side. I'm going to just take the clippers up to the point in the hairline, which is right here, and I'm just flicking out a little bit. Okay, and then same thing. Okay, and now we're going to do the back. Alright, so now that I've established my shortest length using the guide of my hairline where it comes to a point on both sides and the occipital in the back, I'm going to just clean up my neck. Now, you could use the clipper that I just had to take your neck pretty tight, but I've got a different type of clipper here. It's a peanut clipper that basically takes the hair even shorter, and I'm going to do that just to kind of clean up my neck right here, and then we will carry on fading the shortest point up to here. Alright, so now we've cleaned up our neck, we've also established our shortest point, it's time to now blend the sides on up, and then of course for last we'll cut the top. So what I like to do basically is I will take the shortest guard that you can get for one of these clippers, and basically I'm going to go across my head like this first, which is going to get a lot of this long bulk out. Now you can also go from underneath and scoop out. Neither way is right, neither way is wrong, it's whatever you prefer, right? There's no wrong answer on this particular one. But what I like to do is I like to go across and get the bulk out. Now, when I do this, here's what's very important on what you have to do with this. If you place the clipper flat against the head, then the clipper is going to cut your hair according to the shape of your head. So if your head is exceptionally round right here, then it's going to cut a round shape because it's using your head as the guide on the shape it's going to cut. So if you place the clipper flat against your head and slide it against your head, whatever shape head you have will create the shape haircut you're going to give you. So because I don't want a round look right here, I want it square, I'm actually going to hold the clipper right here where it's the shortest against my head, but I'm actually going to pull it away a little bit so that it doesn't cut flat against the head. Now, and I'm not going to pull it away this far, I'm just kind of giving you an example, but I'm going to pull it away a little bit so that what happens is I have more of a square shape going on right here. So the bottom part of the guard will touch and slide against my head, but the top part up here will actually be away from my head. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that really quickly here. Okay, and I'm going to pull my top. I don't want to cut my top, so I'm going to pull that to the side. I don't want to cut it on accident. And then you could see the clippers at the top, the guard right here, it's not against my head, but right here it is. So here we go. Just getting rid of all that bulk. And you could see right there, it already started to blend quite nicely. You have to, of course, fade it a little bit better and a little more cleaner, but it just took a lot of that bulk out, so we can kind of start to see. So now I'll just go through and scoop this out, and basically I'm going to do this all the way around now at the occipital bone as well, and I'm going to do it on my left side here first before we go to the back. Again, the bottom of the guard is touching my head, as you can see, and the top part is not. And we're just going to go across and get rid of all that bulk. All right, look at that. It just makes things so much easier. Okay, now we're also going to do that on the back, but of course we have to blend this line in better. What I'm doing right now is just eliminating bulk so that I can actually see the outline, the haircut that I'm creating here. So let's go to the back as well. And because it's the back of my head, it's a little bit more difficult to go at a side. So here I'm just going to scoop. We're just going to scoop out. Okay, the scooping is very important. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to blend where our shortest point meets where we just cut the guard. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this lever, I'm going to push it all the way back to create the most length, and as we need to, we can work our way up to create less length. So we're just going to go here and I'm slightly kind of flicking the clipper outward, just kind of scooping out. It's a very small scoop, so you might not even really see it happening, but it's happening. Okay, so you can see it's starting to blend much nicer. What we're going to do is now move the lever a little bit, one more notch closer. Okay, again, just making sure that blends nicely. And I actually pulled the thing back again because I'm going to work my way a little higher. Okay, same thing on this side. It's all the way back, of course. We pulled the lever all the way back to create the most length. It's always better to start longer than shorter. Okay, and then I can bring it up a little bit. Okay, so what we've done now at this point is we've taken our shortest length right here, which we basically had no guard on this, and we blended it to where we had the smallest guard we had to go from this length to this length. And then now we've got this length up here on both sides that we got to get rid of. So we're going to put a little bit of a longer guard on and do the same thing that I did before, where we're just going to come across like that and get rid of the weight. So let's get a better guard. All right, so now what I've done is I've put on a longer guard. And again, this is going to be all relative to how short you start here. For some of you, you might not want it to be this short, so you'll start with the guard. So depending on how short this is, how long this is, you're going to decide what guard you're going to put here. So in this case, it's the 1/2 inch guard. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the clippers. And I'm going to, again, pull my top away, and I'm just going to go across. Now, I'm starting long because it's easier to go from longer to shorter, and I can see that this still isn't going to be short enough, so I'm going to have to go with a shorter guard. But before I do that, I'm going to just do both sides. Okay, didn't take much off, so let's go down to a little bit of a smaller guard, I should say. Okay, so now we've got the 3/8, just working my way down. Again, you can see the bottom of the clipper guard is touching my scalp, my head, but the top is not. I do not want this rounded. I want to keep it square. Okay, meaning this is round. Let me give you an example. Round would be if I put the clipper guard flat against my round head, because heads are round. If I took this clipper guard from the position I'm doing it and flattened it out, it's going to cut all of this short and make a round shape. I want to create a square shape. So basically imagine a square straight line. So I'm going to keep the guard square up and down to prevent this going too round. Alright, so now we've done this side, and we'll have to do a little bit more blending, but again, it's just removing the bulk right now. So let me just do a little bit more. Okay, and we still have a little bit of weight right there that we're going to want to eliminate. And so now I'm going to go onto this side, do the same thing. Now we're going to do the back. And again, I'm just scooping out that line. As you can see, we're going to have to take that shorter. Now we're going to put on the 1/4, just getting smaller and smaller. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of flick this line out here in the front. Alright, so now I'm basically putting on the 1/8 to just blend it even better. Now we've cut the sides, and it's time to cut the top. So the top can be as flexible as you want. We can leave it longer. We can definitely cut it shorter. I like my hair a little bit long on top. I do like movement up here and just be able to have some hair to play with. So that's totally up to you on how short you want to take your hair up here. So I'm going to leave my hair a little bit longer on top. Basically, I'm just going to hold the hair through my fingers like this, and depending on how short you want to go, you'll just basically cut off. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and cut the top of my hair. So as you can see, I'm going to start by taking just a little bit off of the top. The reason for this obviously is because I can always cut the hair shorter if I need to, but obviously if you cut the hair too short, you can't put the hair back on. So my recommendation is to start cutting a little at a time and work your way shorter and shorter until you find the length that you're most comfortable with. Now, as I work my way towards the back of my head while still cutting the top, you can see that I'm pulling the hair at the front of my hairline backwards. The reason I'm doing that, they call this over-direction. I'm over-directing the hair at the front of my head towards the back. And the reason for that is because I want to leave the front of my hair longer. So the further back I pull the hair, the longer I leave it. If I don't pull the hair back, I'm obviously going to cut that hair short. But by pulling it back away from the front of my head, I'm creating distance from the root where my hairline is to where I'm cutting the ends, which is super important if you want to leave the hair on top a little bit longer. Okay, again, so the nice thing about cutting my hair dry is whatever length I'm cutting it to is definitely the length it's going to be because it's already dry. It's not going to shrink anymore. We talked about how hair shrinks from wet to dry, so as I'm cutting, I can cut with confidence that this is going to be the length I want it to be, which is so important because you don't want to cut your hair wet and then have it dry and shrink and be shorter than you thought. So let's keep cutting the top. Okay, as I mentioned before, I do like to keep a little bit of length up here on the top just so I could play with, put some pomade into, style it different ways. If you cut it too short, obviously, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if you cut it too short, obviously there's a lot less you can do with the hair. I like to leave it a little bit longer so I have some versatility on dressing it one way versus another way from day to day. Some days I might just have it full of texture, put some pomade into it. Other days I might have it kind of slicked over to the side, something like this. So by leaving a little length, it allows me to be able to play with the style, which is something that I prefer. So of course there's no right or wrong way, it's whatever you prefer. So let's keep cutting the top. We're almost done. All right, so I'm liking the length of the top of my hair right now, so what we're going to do is we're going to put some product into the hair just to see how it looks before we call the haircut complete. The reason we do that is occasionally, once in a while, you may find some straggly pieces that were left behind when you were cutting the top of your hair. So there's no better time to find these pieces than when you're actually start styling your hair the way you're going to wear it every single day. This is when you're going to notice the inconsistencies in your hair cut that you did, so this is a great time to address those before you put the scissors away. So let's get some pomade. I like to use the clay pomade personally because I like a dry look versus a wet look, and the clay pomade does just that. It gives me a dry look. So I'm going to put some clay into my hair and see how it looks. All right, so this is the clay right here, Sebastian's clay, and as you can see, I mean, it's just dry. I mean, there's no moisture in it. It doesn't pour out. And I'll put a little tiny bit on my finger like that. And then I just work it in to my fingertips. Kind of just as if it was like skin lotion to the point where you can't see it anymore. And then I just work it into my hair. And I'm looking to see if there's any inconsistencies or any stragglies that may have got left behind that I need to address and cut, or if I just feel like I could cut a little bit more that it's now that I've got pomade into it, or the styling product's still a little too long. So on that note, I'm going to cut a little bit more off the top here. All right, that's better. I feel that's a better length. And again, this is a great time to make those decisions because you're literally styling the hair the way you're going to wear it, so you can see exactly how the haircut is flowing together. All right, so as I style my hair with the pomade, I'm able to see if the length is good. As I determined, once I started putting the product, I felt like I needed to cut it a little bit shorter, and now I'm happy with the length. So again, as you put in the product, assess the way it looks. This is the way you're gonna wear it. So before you put the scissors away, style it. Make sure it looks good the way you're going to wear it. And if it doesn't, just take it down a little bit shorter if it's too long, or make those final adjustments. All right, so I'm just gonna do one last spin around now just to check the back and make sure that everything blends nicely and is clean. A lot of times when you're cutting your very own hair, you can leave a lot of hair right here on accident just because it's hard to reach, which makes your head look very bubbly right here. So you want to make sure you've got this nice head shape that blends with your occipital bone up to the top. So on that note, I think we're officially all done. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and please give this video a thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching.